As the name implies, the Linear Pattern tool allows you to replicate geometry in a linear fashion. It allows you to pattern geometry in a single direction, or in two different directions within a single step. These copies, referred to as instances, are all based on the original geometry, referred to as the seed, which means that if changes are made to the seed, the patterned instances will change to reflect changes as well. In this lesson, I'll use a few examples to demonstrate how the linear pattern feature works and show you some of the options, such as skipping instances and patterning the seed only when a two-direction linear pattern is used. Finally, I'll go over the instances to vary option, which provides quite a bit of flexibility when using linear patterns.
The Linear Pattern tool creates multiple instances of the geometry you select, which can be spaced uniformly along one or two linear directions. Using this part, I'll show you how to create a linear pattern using this Boss Extrude as the seed feature. But before I get started, I want to quickly point out that this Boss Extrude was actually created with two features, one Boss Extrude feature and one Fillet feature. To launch the Linear Pattern tool, I can go to Insert, Pattern Mirror, and click on Linear Pattern. Or I can click on Linear Pattern from the Features toolbar. When I click on it, the Property Manager appears. In the Direction 1 group box, I can specify a direction by selecting any entity that establishes a vector, such as a line, axis, linear dimension, or model edge. I'll select this model edge to use as the pattern direction. Before I adjust these parameters that control the spacing and number of instances, I would actually like to skip down in the Property Manager to select the geometry that I would like to pattern. By selecting the geometry first, it will be easier to adjust the parameters since a preview will appear in the graphics area. Here you can see that there are two options available for what you can select to pattern. You can pattern features and faces or bodies. As you saw earlier, this cutout is made up of two features, so I'll click the Features and Faces selection window. To select the features, I can either select them in the graphics area, or I can expand the Flyout Feature Manager tree and select the features from there. When I click on a feature, you can see a preview of the pattern appear right away. I'll be sure to select both features that make up the Boss Extrude. At this point, I'll scroll to the top of the Property Manager and adjust the parameters I skipped over a moment ago. In case you ever decide to use a different direction for the pattern, you can always click the Pattern Direction box again, press the Delete key on your keyboard or right-click and press Delete, and select a new direction. In case the preview shows the instances going in the wrong direction, notice the reverse direction icon. Or you can click this arrow in the graphics area to flip it from one side to the other. The next parameters allow you to set the spacing between instances and the number of instances the pattern should include. These can be defined by the spacing and number of instances or by patterning up to a reference and spacing them evenly across that distance. I'll choose spacing and instances for now. I'll click in the spacing cell and type 1.25 millimeters. For the number of pattern instances, I'll type in 4. You probably already noticed that the preview only shows 4 copied instances. The number typed into the Property Manager represents the total number of instances, including the original seed geometry. To create a pattern in two directions, I'll activate the Pattern Direction 2 field. I'll select this edge as the direction vector. You were probably expecting the preview to update, but if you look in the Property Manager, the number of instances for Direction 2 is set to 1. I'll use the arrows to increase this to 5, and you can see the preview updates right away as I do this. But the spacing obviously needs to be adjusted. I'll type in a value of 1.25 millimeters in the spacing window. You can see that the instances that were patterned in Direction 1 were also patterned in this direction. Notice if I check the box to Pattern Seed Only, Direction 2 is only patterning the original seed geometry and does not include the other instances from Direction 1. I'll disable this option for now and show you another example of this in a moment. Another option that you should be aware of is this one down here called Instances to Skip. I'll expand it, and you can see that pink markers were added to the centroid of each instance in the graphics area. To skip an instance, I'll click on any of the markers, and they're removed from the preview right away. To restore a skipped instance, just click on a marker again. At this point, I'll click OK to finish the pattern. SOLIDWORKS also offers a convenient display option to show the seed feature within the completed linear pattern. If I click on the linear pattern feature in the Feature Manager design tree, the pattern highlights in two different colors, one color for the seed and another color for the copied features. This allows you to easily identify where the pattern originated and how the seed feature is driving the pattern. SOLIDWORKS also displays a tooltip about a pattern. If I hover the cursor over the linear pattern feature, information about the pattern appears in a flyout box. Some of this information includes the pattern name, the pattern type, any seeds used to create the pattern, the directions of the pattern, and a few other parameters of the feature.
This tooltip can be turned on or off by going to Options, and under the System Options tab, click Display.
A checkbox for Display Pattern Information Tooltips can be checked or cleared here to enable or disable the tooltip feature. At this point, I'll move on to show you another example. A moment ago, you saw that the second direction defaults to patterning all geometry created by the first direction, unless pattern seed only is used to pattern only the seed geometry. This option is commonly used to prevent overlapping results when the two directions use the same vector. I'll launch the Linear Pattern tool. First, I'll select the seed geometry in order to see a preview in the graphics area. I want to pattern the three-hole feature, so I'll click the Features to Pattern window, expand the Feature Manager tree, and click on the Cut Extrude feature that created the three holes. With the seed geometry selected, I'll set the parameters for direction 1. I'll select this edge for the pattern direction, and using the callout, I'll type a value of 38.5 millimeters in the spacing window, and I'll type in a value of 2 in the Instances window. For direction 2, I'll select the same edge and make sure it's going in the opposite direction. To better show you the effects of the Pattern Seed Only option more clearly, I'll type a value of 25 millimeters in the spacing window and a value of 2 in the Instances window. You can see that all of the geometry created by the first direction is patterned here in direction 2. These two pattern instances would overlap. To prevent this overlap, I'll select the Pattern Seed Only checkbox. Right away, you can see the preview updates to show only the seed geometry being patterned in direction 2.
The linear pattern feature includes an option called Instances to Vary. When this option is enabled, it allows you to vary the spacing for each instance, as well as vary dimensions of the pattern geometry itself. To demonstrate, I'll launch the Linear Pattern tool. I'll skip down and select the geometry to pattern, and edit the Direction 1 parameters. I'll select this edge as the pattern direction, type in a spacing value of 40 millimeters, and set the instances to 4. With a basic pattern created, I'll scroll down to the bottom of the Property Manager and click the Instances to Vary checkbox. This field at the top allows you to vary the pattern spacing by typing in a value that will increment for each instance. I'll enter a value of 10 millimeters, meaning that the spacing between instances will increase by 10 millimeters for each instance in the pattern. You can also choose feature dimensions to vary in direction 1. In the graphics area, you can see the dimension values that can vary based on the seed geometry that has been selected. To add feature dimensions to this window, I'll click on the dimension in the graphics area. I'll click this radius dimension, and you can see that it was added to the window. To edit the increment value, I'll double-click the cell and type in a value of 2 millimeters. I'll add one more dimension. I'll select the width dimension. I'll type in a value of 5 millimeters, but this time I'll use the callout. Notice that the Direction 2 Vary Instances options are disabled. If you have a pattern that goes in two directions, you would be able to edit these as well. To apply the changes I just made, I'll click OK, and you can see that spacing between instances increases, along with the radius and width. If you want to modify a specific pattern instance to use a different value than what is being incremented, SOLIDWORKS allows you to do this as well. I'll click on the Pattern feature and select Edit Feature. Just as you saw in an earlier example where the markers were used to skip instances, notice if I click on a marker for one of the varying instances, there's an option to skip, as well as to modify this instance. If I click Modify Instance, a callout appears that's attached to the instance. I can edit the values to override the current pattern settings. For this example, I'll change the spacing to 100 millimeters, the width to 40 millimeters, and I'll click OK.